Miami for winning too much. So that tells you a lot about him and where he's at. And he's in the top, hey, believe it or not, he's in the top 5, top 6 in QBR and completions in the last 3 years of his career. He's got better. It's like wine. He's getting better. But I got something that I feel, as much as I know Ryan is going to help us win and he's going to be that guy, you know, sometimes in football, it's all about the story. I feel a Kurt Warner type story happening with Tyler Heineke. I just feel if Ryan Fitzmagic missed just 1 or 2 games, he'll never get his job back again. I feel that Tyler Heineke would get in there and really become Kurt Warner of the Washington football team. Yes, the guy that comes out of nowhere that was bagging groceries that turns into a Hall of Famer. I gotta feel it.
How does that OG title make you feel to know that you had made an imprint into this fan base and things like that?
Oh, that's what it make you feel. Oh, you know, you used to look at the guys like B. Mitch and Doc Walker, you know, you Sonny Jurgensen's, and you like, man, they played and they was a part of historic teams, and all of a sudden, you know, we didn't have any history. I think we brought a different energy to the city, and you know, just having the luxury of playing with Sean T and playing with Santana, myself, Marcus, Chris, and I think the guys, you know, Smoot, those guys that was in that community meant so much. You know, even the unsung heroes, the Mike Sellers, the Rock Cartwrights, the Kerry Campbells, you know, the list goes on. The people that was just embedded in the community and that meant well or did well. And then you have those guys that didn't do shit there that the community can't stand. So everybody came in,
yes,
you know,
sir.
the guys that during my term, you know,
yes,
the Bart Harringtons of the world.
Let's go ahead and turn this thing off. Just for a second, man. Shout out to Glenn Portis, man.
That was around.
I know he's going through some things right now, but he's gonna bounce back for sure. Turn this thing off right now. Boom. Remove that. Remove that. And there we go. And I'm getting used to this thing. Okay, here we go. All right. Here we are. Welcome back to another episode of the Trapper Die Podcast, provided to you by 214 Media. I am your host, Marley Mole, Henny Mole, Hen Dog Mole, Jamo. I'm here with Dre tonight. AJ is on the way. And then obviously we got the good man, Damien Bartonek of Dame Dropback and Riggo's Rag. He's checking in with us tonight to talk a little Washington football team, reflect on the 21 season and the 22 off season. So with that being said, Dre, how you feeling tonight? And second thing is, you know, Damien, he got a little bone to pick with us. So I'm gonna let him talk about that when he speaks up. But how you feeling tonight, Dre?
I'm good, man. You know what I'm saying? Thursday night, ready for the weekend, ready for some more Washington football talk. We got plenty to talk about, right?
Yes. We got a few things to talk about tonight, man. Damien, how you feeling, bro? I know you just said you took a little time out for us from your fishing trip, man, and you love fishing. I respect that because, like I told you, it's something that I used to love doing with my folks when I was younger, man. So appreciate you taking that time out for us and checking in with us, man. How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. You know, what's crazy is we're just going to get into this, man. I got a bone to pick with y'all. So, you know, Dre, I followed him, you know, since I was freshman in high school, 8th grade, you know. And, you know, he's, you know, real good guy, right? You know, Jamal, follow him, you know, show him love, right? And all I heard, you know, coming up to when I was coming to D.C., you know, when I had him on my show was, yeah, holler at me. Yeah, we're going to do something. Yeah. Man, I knew that was cap, man. They didn't want to holler at me. They want to chill with me.
From this dude when he was here.
I was like, what?
I'm about to say, come on.
I was like, what is going on, man? So man, I'm just so upset, man. What are you talking about? I told y'all the dates and everything, man.
I'm about to say, let's be honest. We did say that. We did know that, Damien. We did say that. Second thing is, neither one of us, both sides, none of us hit each other up, man. But I will say this: I'm not gonna put no excuses out there. I did know you was your family though. I just didn't. Yeah. That's all I left it at. And I gave you a couple suggestions. I know that much, but I just didn't know what you was on when you got down here.
I
did hit you up.
It's not just y'all two. I got Paul Williams. Oh, I got to talk to him too.
Yes.
We got to talk to.
50.
But yeah, man.
Put him in there.
In all seriousness, though, I'm glad to be here, guys, and thanks for having me. And man, we're gonna kill this podcast just like I'm about to go get 6 sharks right now after I'm done. So I'm happy, man. I'm happy. Let's do it.
All right, so listen. How about this then? What's the setup? How close are you to the Cowboy Stadium?
Oh, me, I'm like 3 hours away.
Oh, damn. Okay. All right. Well,
you live in San Antonio?
I live around there. Yeah, San Antonio, New Braunfels area around there.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's New Braunfels is in between like Austin and San Antonio.
Okay. Gotcha. But I'm for sure hitting the Dallas game this year, man. I don't know if I'm gonna be. I don't know how many coming with me, because they always try to put us on for the Thanksgiving game, so that's probably gonna try and change things. But if it ain't Thanksgiving, I'm about to be out that thing. So.
But Maul, that's funny because the game I'm actually trying to go to, the road game I'm going to, is against the Texans this year. Like I'm trying to hit up.
I'm gonna be there too
and see us play down there.
There
we go. That's it.
I'm gonna be there too. Oh yeah,
that was my first zone too.
Hey, when y'all just let me know, I'll be at both games this coming season. So yeah, that's without a doubt. I'll be there.
Okay, I may have to try and swing both games then. Especially if they spaced out, I could probably fade that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, look. We set it in stone. We put it on the podcast again. You know what I'm saying? If we go 0 for 2, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know if we should try a third time.
Yeah, if y'all go, we go 0 for 2, it's a wrap, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, man. So when it comes to this football team that we care so deeply about, we've had our thoughts throughout the entire season, man. The information has changed. The information was updated. Our preconceived thoughts heading into the season was one thing. Turned out by the end of the season, it's typically another, or for better or for worse. This year, unfortunately, it was for worse. And I think to kick off this season recap, or season recap, I guess, is we're gonna ask each other, I guess, in a roundtable way. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions that I had. That we'll try to answer. So I'll put out these 5 questions for you all. I'll also read some of the comments from Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, also, if you are watching on Twitter, try to migrate over to Twitch or YouTube so you can be part of the comments and we can see your comments on the stream as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with the guest, the good man, Damien. The first question that we had, or comment, was the most surprising turnout of the 2021 season. Now, when I say turnout, because my man Disco asked me this question, I guess I'll clarify for all of us too. He asked what turnout was. It can be a result, depending from a decision made, or whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, or it could be a result from a player, whether it's lack of production, or good production, or it could be any way you interpret it. But if we had to define it for my man Disco, I'm putting it out there so we all kind of know the criteria. So, most surprising turnout of the season.
I'd probably say I'm going to go with the player route. And I said this on my podcast, and I don't mean to like reiterate it, but I feel like I have to, because I kind of grilled him at times. I think Taylor Heinicke starting for the entire season, I think he played better than I expected. I was really anticipating that if Washington had to play a guy like Taylor Heinicke for 17 games, Washington probably wasn't winning 7 games, especially with this schedule. Although obviously he's really limited. That was kind of one of the major things I was looking at coming into the year. He really exceeded my expectations. Now, he's not a starting quarterback, but at the same time too, how many COVID quarterbacks, off the top of your head, do you think could do that in this offense? You know what I mean? Now, it's also a credit to Scott Turner, which I don't know why so many people are upset with him. But in that same token, that same breath, I think Taylor Heinicke was really surprising to me, because winning 7 games, beating some really good teams during that stretch, I think you have to be impressed with what you got from him overall.
Dre,
And for me, I'm gonna have to go with the most obvious one. Defensive line. The defensive line was the most surprising. No one expected them to, be as disappointing as they were this year. Like Jamal said, I think they were talking about the sack record this year, which was like 53 sacks or something, and he ended up with 38. I mean, well below what they, initially predicted. And just, even if they didn't hit that, they just were disappointing as a unit in whole. I mean, obviously John Allen, he played like a beast. He played all pro level most of the season. And Deron Payne, he was okay for the most part of the season, but it was just that was the unit you expected to kind of carry this defense and the team, and everyone else is supposed to feed off of them. And it was the most disappointing unit that we saw, and I think it was like part of the result that led to why the defense was so disappointing this year.
Yeah, I guess I'll piggyback on yours, Dre, and go a little bit more macro. It is the defensive side of me, like the most surprising turnout. It just not just the result, but just a huge drop off from year one to year two. The 2020 rankings and key metrics. The team was 6th on third down defense, 4th in red zone defense, 6th in sacks, 3rd in DVOA if you pay attention to Football Outsiders. Chase Young, Montez Sweat combined for 16.5 sacks. The defense was 7th in turnovers forced. And then you turn to 2021, and you have a team that's 31st in third down, 17th in red zone, 17th in sacks, 27th in DVOA. Young and Sweat combined for 6.5 sacks, and the team was 22nd in turnovers. When you talk about a defense, specifically who last year was one of the league's top pass defenses, I think they were top 3 in yards per game last year. This is a team who was 29th in the NFL a year later. You obviously understand the decisions that they made in the secondary, letting Jimmy Moreland go, letting Ron Darby go, bringing in Torrey McTyer, bringing in William Jackson III, and trying to let things work out from there. And obviously having Benjamin St. Juste, your rookie, who just couldn't stay on the field. And, not really his fault. Concussions are what they are. But, like, you have these changes in the secondary that was really strong last year. I think that the biggest disappointment or the most surprising turnout was the defense and just how far it dropped off. Noted, we was going to play a different schedule. We were talking about quarterbacks who were going to be top 10 in the NFL. You had about 8 of them on your schedule that you're going to go up against. And it was always going to be tougher. The stats, you weren't going to remain a top 5 defense, but you thought you were going to be competent. And for the defense to drop off as far as it did from top 5 to bottom 5, that is alarming, and it's kind of crazy how it happened for this season, fellas.
Yeah, I think I have one point to add to that, or to ask y'all really. So the defensive line, I get that. One thing I think for me that really sticks out is like how you guys mentioned too, the secondary. I really think early on in the year, a lot of what we saw from the defensive line not producing, like I know you guys aren't alluding to this, but a lot of times people just look at the box score. And the secondary for the first probably 6-7 weeks was the worst in football, in my opinion. It was atrocious. And we all 3 of us know, like, man, sometimes, if the secondary is going to be really bad, playing terrible, the quarterbacks just need to get the ball out within 2 seconds and they're good. You know what I mean? So I think early on especially, I wasn't too upset with how the defensive line played because of how bad the secondary looked. But then the second half of the year, it was kind of like you got some mixed bag from that group as well. So I would like to hear y'all's thoughts on that too, because I think a lot of what we saw this year defensively, at least initially, was a lot of secondary issues that I think were the main issue for this team.
Now, yeah, I definitely agree that the secondary was pretty horrendous early on, but a lot of that, like the safeties, I remember early in the season were just having a really hard time. They were playing Landon Collins a lot of deep safety, and Bobby McCain, he was playing deep safety, and they were having a lot of coverage breakdowns that we saw early on in the season. But like you said, there was a lot of times where guys were just open within the first 1 to 2 seconds. And I also thought that could have been scheme related too. I didn't think it was all necessarily on the players. I thought something was wrong with the scheme. If you just see that every play there's a guy being open, within the first 1 to 2 seconds. And I also felt like we saw this too early on in the season where Ron Rivera and then was kind of going through the media saying that guys are playing within the scheme, and I thought he was kind of alluding to the defensive ends like Chase and Montez early in the season. Like those guys weren't playing discipline within the scheme; they were trying to make plays, outside of what was being called. So I don't know if that had a lot to do with what was going on, because if you saw like Chase and Montez rushing the passer early on, they were getting pushed to the outside and past the quarterback, and the quarterback just had an easy pocket to step up and to find the open guy a lot of times. So it kind of started there, but as well as the coverage issues was there. But Damien, in the second half of the season, the coverage did get better. But the unfortunate part about that was Chase and Montez were hurt a lot in the second part of the season. Chase was out for the second half of the season, and then Montez was out with the broken jaw for about 4 or 5 games to end the season. So we didn't get to see, if those guys were going to progress like you wanted them to progress from their first half of the season to kind of where the secondary started to progress. So it was just a really disappointing year all around on defense.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. It's just disappointing all around. What's going on, Merle and Alex? It's hard to really pinpoint, the exact problem. Like, so I put it this way: early on, it's easy to say like the secondary. Yes, you had coverage holes all throughout the defense. I think they played Landon Collins too long in the secondary, meaning like too long as a safety, a deep safety, and they tried to use all three guys. Like when you think about what Ron Rivera said in the offseason, his biggest thing was position flexibility, versatility. Yes. All right, so like his biggest thing was always trying to utilize as many players as he could, as opposed to using his best players in the best spot for them to make the play for their defense, or the same thing with the offense, like putting your people in the best position that they're comfortable in or that you see them producing in. And that's kind of what kind of hung them up for the most part. It took them in 2020, it took them so long to start Cameron Curl. Obviously, he's a rookie. You have Landon Collins in front of you, so you're kind of hesitant already because you know the hierarchy and stuff like that. But at the same time, how do you start out 2021 doing the same thing? Cameron Curl is he's a rising star at the safety position, at the strong safety position. You know what he's capable of, and you had Landon Collins playing free and strong in positions that he wasn't really comfortable with. Excuse me, I take that back. He was very comfortable with it. He just wasn't good at it. Like you had to kind of maneuver. You had to maneuver around that part, and he found his way on the defense. I don't know who's responsible for it, but for me, I just feel like these guys did a little bit too much early on, and the back end was impacted. But also, when you look at the front end in terms of the defensive line, the pass rushers, it's just hard to say because I agree with what Dre is at. But if you mess the two, like even if the secondary was playing good, would you have gotten the sack numbers? I can't say that you would have still gotten the sack numbers because those pressure stats that people kept putting out, to hell with that. Like you still weren't getting home, and even after the bye week, you still weren't getting home. So I just feel like you really don't know just yet, and it was hard to say because that unit was just so poor. So overall, I agree with Dre. It's just hard to say for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that too. And yeah, the sack numbers. Now even if the secondary plays better, they're not getting 15 more sacks. No way. You need a little bit more than win rates to get some more to get home, man. I agree. Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and scroll through a couple of. I know y'all aren't going to be able to see it, the people that's watching the stream, but some of the questions. The first one that we went through, the most surprising turnouts, the DNs not taking the next step. My man Manny mentioned obviously the DNs were trash. Disco mentioned Jamin Davis. The play on the defense was the most surprising. Okay. So we got one. One of the most surprising was offensive line. And somebody else mentioned O-line depth. So yeah, we have a lot about the defense. But yeah, a couple of nods to the offensive line. All right, so the next thing, the least surprising turnout of the season. I'll start this one first because mine's gonna be quick. I knew that motherfucker Dustin Hopkins wasn't gonna last on this team, bro. I knew it. I was not surprised he was getting kicked or getting cut. I told people in August. I had the conversation with you, Dre, with Candy. Why do I keep? Oh my Lord, I'm so sorry. But we did our preview predictions. I said that Dustin Hopkins was going to cost these guys a game eventually, and sure as shit, he damn near cost them 3. And so they let him go. And that was my least surprising turnout of the season, moving on from Dustin Hopkins.
You can go, Dre.
I guess for me, I'll say my least surprising turnout is that Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't finish the season. I mean, it's probably more surprising that he only played a couple of plays in the season, but I honestly didn't think he would finish the season, but I probably thought it was going to be more so due to performance than injury. But yeah, that was my least surprising turnout because I just, at his age, I just didn't feel like he was going to be that answer for the team going forward. And I felt like at some point, you were going to see Taylor Heineke this season. I just didn't think you would see Taylor Heineke for 17 games, but or 16 games. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the least surprising, this is probably going to be a hot take. You can go, anyone who's listening can go after the show and listen to the episode I had with PFF's Nick Ackridge.
Okay.
I was not surprised Jamin Davis was going to struggle this year to this extent. We talked about it on my pod before the year.
Glad AJ ain't on here.
Yeah, no. The reason is so we both knew and we talked about it, and I've written about it, pretty a good amount that Jamin's first year was going to be this bad. Nick Ackridge said the same thing, that he's going to have plenty of grades this his rookie year where he's going to be graded in the 20s and the 30s, and that's exactly what happened. But he was never a Mike and never really an inside guy in Kentucky. They played him primarily this year, and man, for a player that's so raw, who's just really kind of inexperienced, only had 1 true year of production in college, man, in my head I'm like, what did you expect? I was pretty shocked when Ron opens like, oh, he's an outside guy. Well, like in my opinion, like I'm not trying to curse on this show, but like it's kind of like duh. No shit, he's an outside guy. Like he was an outside guy in college. Like I understand too, playing him initially at Mike to see how it works. But for a guy that's really raw like that, you think you'd actually want to get him up to speed in a position he's comfortable with, and then make that transition after. It didn't happen, and it didn't work. And hopefully that kid's confidence isn't shaken because I really think he's got a ton of upside, especially if he's going to be used outside, even as a pass rusher. But yeah, not to go on my Jamin Davis, tangent, but yeah, I wasn't surprised he struggled. And I know some people might think I'm full of shit, but you can check
Damien,
out the resume.
let me ask this for you, Damien. What do you see the career outlook for Jamin? How do you see his career going here?
That's a good question.
I think honestly, man, if they're going to use him as an outside guy, as a will, I think he'll be fine. I mean, really, I think there's a lot of things that you want him to improve on, of course. But right now, a lot of what you saw was a player that wasn't playing with any confidence, man. He looked uncomfortable out there. He looked like he was second-guessing things. So I think in terms of an outlook, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro player or a Pro Bowl player, but I think he can be a starter for this team and a guy that can, you can really have on your defense that fits around the pieces that you have. But I understand, too, someone might tell me, like, well, that's not worth the 19th pick. And to a degree, I get that 100%. But at the same time, too, I don't think he'll never be this bad again next year. I think he's gonna improve. They're gonna play him at his natural spot, and he'll be fine.
Hey, look, I'm in Davis's corner, but there's 2 things here.
Mm-hmm.
One, I learned actually, ironically or funny enough, from Dre during the Josh Norman situation, but when Carolina cut him, it's like never say never in the NFL. So if he's never going to be this bad, I wouldn't say that. He may fuck around and be bad again. But like I said, I'm in his corner. Second thing.
Okay.
You brought up a good point about, like, is he worth the first round pick? And I had this question in my head, and the question in my head stemmed around Ron Rivera's comments and his pressure with Martin Mayhew. And he had essentially, indirectly, because he was talking about the quarterback position and he was talking about preaching patience. He was talking about all these other things about, why expectations had shot through the roof for first round picks and second round picks and third round picks as well. And he mentioned Jamin Davis, saying that, we had to sit and figure him out. We had to understand him. He wasn't that, and this is not what he said verbatim, but he's like, he wasn't that good his first year, but that's not his fault, essentially. And I'm like, all right, well, you identified his flaws. You identified the flaws in your scouting, at least early on with Jamin Davis. So can you say that it was truly worth the first round pick in the moment? Like, sure, like think about it. The idea when you took Brandon Sheriff, you wanted him at tackle. That was your intent. It turned out that he was an all-pro guard, so you still win drafting him. But in the moment, was it worth the first-round pick drafting Jamin, knowing what you know now and knowing that his first year, it was nowhere close to Brandon Sheriff's? Like, that transition, it was not there. So, like, for me, I have that heart. Now, I asked the question, like, literally on Twitter, obviously, but it was not necessarily to get an answer right now. It was more so thinking about how do you process the situation that you were in. You're still needing that middle linebacker that you thought Jamin Davis was. I don't know if it was worth the first-round pick. If I'm sitting here processing that as a coach, trying to make excuses for him, I don't know.
Yeah, no. If it's true too, shout out to my guy Matt. I forgot to say his last name. I don't want to butcher it on here, but he basically mentioned that Washington runs a outside linebackers only play 20 to 30% of the snaps normally in whatever Washington's base is. And so I'm curious. I'm like, if he's only going to be playing 30% of the snaps, then no, he's definitely not worth it. He's definitely not worth the first-round pick. But in that same token, though, you would think they weren't so, short-sighted in the sense of, like, we're getting this guy to play Mike, even though he didn't play Mike at the next level, at the collegiate level. But we're getting him to play Mike. And then if it doesn't work, be like, oh, well, it didn't work. Like, I hope that was not their thought process. You'd think it wasn't, right? But, yeah, I hear you. I mean, people have a right to be frustrated. My whole deal is like, man, I really like, I cannot stress this enough, guys. Like, I'm not, trying to like mess with y'all. Like, I really saw this coming, bro. Like, I figured it was gonna be pretty bad, bro. Like, oh man.
Hey, look, when you trust your scouting and your analysis, I understand it. Like, it's something that you saw coming, and it just so happened that your team, the Washington football team drafted him. So it's like, damn, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I wanted them to draft Jamin, man, because I think, like I said, I thought the plan was, and right when I wrote the piece when he got drafted on draft night, I said he projects as a will linebacker, as just a will immediately, and then later on in his career, you can try to transition him at Mike. Well, they said, screw Damien, he's dumb, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're gonna throw him at Mike. He's only played 1 year of college football, and it didn't work out. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and catch up on some of the comments. First and foremost, everybody that's in the chat, everybody that's watching live, let's get ready for the other conversation as well. If you had 5 things to prioritize on your to-do list for the Washington football team in this offseason, what 5 items are you doing for this offseason? I know some of you all that's in the chat, y'all posted it on Twitter already. We'll be reading some of those. But if you have not done that, if you're in the chat and you wanna get your list off, let us know what your 5 are that you're going to prioritize for the Washington football team this offseason. So Alex mentioned another turnover was Gibson's fumbling. He led the league in running back fumbles. He said his least surprising was Curtis Samuel's few contributions. What's going on, Disco? Disco mentioned that Alex Smith, and Ryan Fitzpatrick all suffered career-ending injuries on missed blitz pickups. I can't say that 5 times in a row fast. But Isaiah Simmons and Patrick Crane came on big their second season, so he hasn't really given up faith on Jamin Davis. My boy Jared, what's going on? Jared mentioned he doesn't think that Jamin should have gone at 19, but also thinks it's very, very early for all these people labeling him a bust. Okay, so some of the comments that we have for the second one was you can't win in the NFL without a quarterback. In terms of the least surprising turnout of this season, Manny mentioned Heineke not being a long-term solution. The final record was one that somebody mentioned the least surprising. 7-10, same thing. Least surprising was Terry. Still is great, but needs to be locked up long term. And then the least surprising, somebody else, quarterback ineptitude. So we have a few of those. All right, let's move on to the third one. I'm sorry. Who's one player that has disappointed you? I'll go ahead and kick this one off with Dre. Who was one player that disappointed you this season?
One player that disappointed me this season, I hate to say it, but Curtis Samuel. I mean, and it's not all his fault, but it's just what you expected out of him. And like I said, last show I blamed the team because the team didn't shut the guy down. But Curtis Samuel was just a huge disappointment because, I mean, he couldn't get on the field at all. I didn't realize that he had a injury that pretty much dated back to Carolina, which is, you would hope that the staff would know about. But that's a guy I expected a lot of production out of this season. I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to take a lot off of Terry's plate this season, and he just couldn't get on the field. And when he did get on the field, we only saw him 10 to 15 snaps in a game. So it was like all he was doing was getting a couple of handoffs, also just being a decoy. So that was obviously the biggest disappointment on the year. But again, I'm not putting that blame fully on Curtis Samuel. I think the team should have at least put him on IR at some point earlier in the season to, they did put him on IR early in the season, but they took him off. But I thought he probably should have just stayed on until he got 100% healthy, if that was ever going to happen this season. But just to save us the whole Curtis Samuel side field storyline, that would have been nice, but that was the biggest disappointment this season.
All right,
yeah,
Damien.
Yeah, my camera's acting dumb right now, but yeah,
you're good.
I think Curtis Samuel's a good answer. I think another. I think it really happens in and it has to depend on like weeks, because like, for example, like the first like 5-6 weeks, I think it would have to be William Jackson. It's probably like the most disappointing player in my opinion. Because although he was never his own guy, I think one of the things that was disappointing was how bad he was in zone, because he was atrocious. Whether it was him and Bobby McCain not being able to get on the same page, him and Landon Collins. William Jackson had a really tough time kind of fitting into this defense. So I'd say like for the first probably half of the year, I'd probably say William Jackson. But I think even too, you have to be a little bit disappointed, not to get two answers, but I think the one thing I think offensively you have to be disappointed in is just Antonio Gibson's kind of inefficiency to make the most out of his touches. His inability to make the most out of his touches, I think. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay, so somebody mentioned mine in the chat. My boy Alex, he said Chase Young. My most disappointed player was Chase Young. At the end of the day, look, defensive ends get paid for sacks. If somebody's going to use those double team or chip, bro, oh my God. I've never seen a fan base cling on to so many things before in my lifetime when somebody is struggling. I remember early in the season how many numbers people pushed out there for players. No, let me be specific. For Chase Young and Montez Sweat getting chipped, getting double teamed, all these things and reasons why they're not getting to the quarterback. If you want somebody, or if you label somebody a generational talent before the draft, how are you making excuses for that guy when the season comes around? Before the draft, it's all about generational talent. First year, 7.5 sacks. Pretty impressive, right? I mean, it's impressive. It's not that great. Like, you've had rookie of the years have double-digit sack totals. But anyway, 7.5 sacks. So he could have done better. This year, you have 10 games played. You have 1.5 sacks. End of the day, you get paid. You get paid for those numbers, bro. And I don't care what the excuses are, chips, double teams, whatever. That's just my most disappointing or one disappointing player, man. So I'm gonna just leave it at that with that one.
But hold up, Jamal, to kind of tag on to what you were saying and how you were shocked at fans that clinged on to Chase Young and how they defended him. It's not surprising to me at all. This fan base, like, you don't have to produce. If you are drafted at a certain position, or if they determine before you played a football game that you're going to be their savior, they're going to cling. Look, Dwayne Haskins. We had Dwayne Haskins supporters for 2 years claiming that this guy was something that he wasn't for 2 years, and they were trying to convince everyone that he's something. It's not his fault. It's everyone else's fault. It's okay if he's not all the way bought in. It's everyone else's fault, So you're going to see that with Chase. And I'm not trying to compare Chase to Haskins. Chase is actually produced in the league, and Haskins never produced in the league. But you're going to get those. Just the excuses. Yeah. The fans are going to, regardless of what happens, they're always going to cling on to this guy because that's a guy that they kind of deemed as a savior when they drafted this guy, and that's what they did with Dwayne Haskins to the umpteenth level.
Absolutely. My boy AJ just checked in, man. AJ, I hope all is well with you, big dog.
Yes, sir.
We are just answering up some questions for the season, man. We turned out, the current question that we on is just the one player that disappointed you this year in terms of whatever expectations you had set for them. So if you want to hop in on that before we move to the next round, The floor is yours, big dog.
I mean, I guess I'll probably say two guys. Antonio Gibson, returning for another year and having these fumbling issues, especially, in crucial moments in the red zone, things of that nature. You would think that in the offseason he prioritized holding on to the ball more. Even his running back coach, Randy Jordan, focusing on that. I think that was very disappointing. Of course, we know he eclipsed 1,000 yards running, but it doesn't mean shit if you can't hold on to the ball. You giving up the ball in crucial moments. Obviously, we could see during the season, Ron Rivera was kind of scared to put him out there, not knowing if the ball was going to come out or not, because of those moments, whether it be week one or in the middle of the season. He kept having fumbling moments. Second one is Jamin Davis. Not to keep bashing on the guy, but you take a guy 19th overall and you don't see any kind of glimpse of him being a 19th overall pick, a first-round draft pick at all. That's disappointing because that means that your front office, your personnel staff missed. I mean, yeah, it might be too soon to say that, but nothing looks promising in regards to how you can utilize him, the way that you drafted him. The reason why you drafted him was to be a middle linebacker, and now you're going into another year where you need a middle linebacker, and you might have to acquire that player through trade or draft. And even in the draft, there's not many top, middle linebacker guys available. So you're going to have to groom and develop another guy if you do go that route. And in free agency, not many middle linebackers available either there, unless you get aggressive and maybe call Seattle, see what's up with Bobby Wagner or Deion Jones in Atlanta or something of that nature.
Hey, I told you, Damien, that boy, AJ, y'all the same peas in the pod with the Jamin Davis talk. Damien was just talking about it. Same situation. That's just something. He said that was his least surprising turnout of the season. He had Jamin. He knew Jamin Davis was going to struggle this year, especially where he was at. So, it is what it is. All right, two more. Let's wrap these songs up. One player that
Drake. What were you saying, Drake?
Okay.
I think no. I was just going to speaking on the AJ's point. If we are getting on it later about our offseason plans, I do definitely want to speak on the middle linebacker point a little bit more about how we can attack that this offseason.
Okay, absolutely. One player that impressed you this season. I'll kick things off with mine. I had two. First one, Logan Thomas. And if you all were not surprised by Logan Thomas, guess what? I was. I'm a person. Dre knows. I've been saying it. He just felt weird for me as a tight end. I didn't really think that his mobility just always stood out to me. It wasn't always anything natural. It was clunky. I just knew he had leaping ability and he had strong hands, but I just didn't know anything else. And I still feel that way, but I just feel like he's taking over games for Washington in the sense of if you threw his way, you had a feeling that I wouldn't give it 100% chance, but like 75% of the time he's coming down with the ball. And that's kind of where I was. Like, if you can feel that comfortable with a guy, giving him an option like Terry McLaurin, like his is even higher. Like, I'm thinking like 85% of the time he's coming down with the ball. This is the type of confidence that you want to have in a receiver. So for me, Logan Thomas and then Jonathan Allen for the obvious reasons. I thought it was going to be good. I think he was going to have an all-pro type of season. So that's kind of where I'm at with my two, the people that impressed me this year.
Yeah, I'll jump in there real quick. Yeah, I'll jump in there real quick. I mean, it's crazy to me, even hearing you say Logan Thomas' name in regards to playing tight end. A lot of people forget at one point during his college career at Virginia Tech, people were saying potentially could be the number one pick at quarterback. So it says a lot about Logan Thomas and the work that he's put in. He's always been a hard worker, been on Logan since his Virginia Tech days. But I'll follow up with Jonathan Allen as well. We had a lot of discussions. I was saying that he could be a great trade asset, to go acquire a quarterback. With me?
No, you're good.
Yeah, so I was saying he could be a great trade asset, going into the offseason. Well, not offseason, but during the season and trying to get a quarterback. But he balled out, he did what he had to do. Job is pretty much easier on him too with all the talent surrounding him on the D line. But he did a good job, and even Deron Payne, maybe he didn't put up the Jonathan Allen numbers, but I feel like he had a solid season. I feel like he proved that he can be one of the top guys at D tackle in the NFL.
All right, I'll go next. Two guys, they didn't surprise me because I actually kind of like, I actually mentioned them a couple of times before the season started. But the first guy is Deandre Carter. Deandre Carter had a pretty, solid season. He made a name for himself in this league, not only on special teams, but I thought he started to show that he can do some things on offense this year on that side of the ball. And the second guy is John Bates. That's a guy who, he didn't get many opportunities this season, but the opportunities he did get, I thought he showed potential that he could probably be a tight end one in this league. Because we don't know what's going to happen with Logan Thomas going forward. Logan Thomas is obviously probably not going to be ready to start the season next year. So John Bates may be your tight end number one going in the next season. And he's a guy that, like I said, every opportunity I've seen him get, he maximizes opportunity. I think he's a good blocker. I think he's a short-handed guy. I think he can find ways to get open. And Pete Honer, the tight ends coach, was like when a couple of the Fox 5 guys, one of the broadcasts, I can't remember which broadcast it was, but they were asking Pete Honer, the tight end coach, about Logan Thomas. He was like, the guy you need to watch out for is John Bates. And that's a guy who, when I looked at Boise State tape, I said, that's a guy who may be a solid pick that they got in the 4th round. So he impressed me in the time he got. So my two guys, Deandre Carter and John Bates.
I think for me, it'll have to start. I think I was really impressed with, considering how bad Kendall looked in the slot. I think after he moved back to the outside, I was really impressed with how he bounced back and how he put together a really strong year. Now that creates a little bit of an issue going forward because you drafted Benjamin St. Juste, and I think that guy's a primarily outside guy. And if he's, God willing, he's healthy, I don't know what you're going to do with that cornerback room. That's going to be really interesting to watch. But I was really impressed with how Kendall played, how he bounced back after a really rough start to the year. And then I think another thing I was impressed with, too, was how dominant Sam Cosmi looked in the run game. I think I was really high on him coming out. But whenever he was in there, he was playing. That dude was just a man amongst the boys. I mean, he was for me, that was a home run pick. And I think that although I thought he could play on the left side, he looks like a guy that's just going to be sensational for years to come at that position.
Hey, Damien, quick question. Would you rather have Sam Cosmi or Jeremiah Wusu Chroma, the linebacker at Cleveland Browns?
Well, you want to know what's actually funny is whenever the whole draft was going on, I was actually saying they should have double dipped at linebacker. But in that same token, like I really I don't know how else to say this, but like I don't even think it really matters because I think that's about the home run either way. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I get it though. I get what you're saying, and I trust me. At the time, I was like, yeah, let's double dip there. I think you need to. But at the same time, Sam Cosmi, I really liked him. I thought Sam Cosmi was a first round prospect, so I'm not upset with that pick either.
All right. So catching up on some of the comments, Michael Haas, what's going on, big dog? He said that a fun fact: Jeffrey Simmons is the only. Now, he says a fact, but we got to double check. But he said that Jeffrey Simmons is the only number 19 pick that has produced consistently in the last 5 years. And then Jared, I see yours. I'm gonna save that for when we do our five things. And Disco mentioned that Bates is a keeper. I tend to agree. All right, so the last thing before we get into the 5 things is the one thing that we learned from the season, the 2021 season, and we can go from there. AJ is laughing. I want him to have the floor first. I know I feel like he got something to say. Oh, no, but before you go, actually, I'm my bad. Damien, are you good with your time? Because I know you said before we got on that you were doing your fishing trip. So I don't want to hold you, but I just want to make sure you're good.
Look, man, it's dark outside. That means the fish are coming out, so we're good, man. By the time I get back, I got a lot of sharks to catch, so I'm not worried about it.
I was about to say, you about to be on River Monsters tonight. God damn.
Shit.
All right, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, AJ. I just had to ask. I know he was. Oh
no, you good. I was just laughing at that statistic of 19th overall pick. That shit sounded real ESPN like. But you know how they just be pulling shit out their ass. But yeah. I mean, overall, My plan would be to fire Jack Del Rio. I tweeted about this a couple days ago.
Hold on. With the plan, we doing the one thing or what you doing? What
No,
you
AJ
my
can't
bad,
wait
my
to get
bad,
to
my
that shit.
bad.
AJ was
He had to let the
you
people
said
know.
skip that.
He
You
gotta
said
go.
skip it. You said skip it. You said skip it. That's what he
My
said.
bad.
Skip it.
I must have got distracted. So what was the question again?
Fire Jack Del Rio. Fire him.
One thing that you learned from the season, from the 2021 season. What is one thing that you took away from it?
Oh, I guess I could say the same thing again, that they need to fire Jack Del Rio. That man is not the dude with the defense. He's not the defensive play caller that they should have. I mean, when you have, forget the fact of them being first-round draft picks or whatever the case is, when you have Allen, Settle, Ioannidis, Sweat, and Chase Young, and they don't produce the numbers that they do or the pass rush that they should from that front four, that is a problem, because that front four can help everything. It can help the flow of the linebackers. It can help the secondary. And if you're not getting pressure and schematically getting guys to do stunts or whatever and getting to the quarterback in a timely fashion, that's a problem. So, yeah, I guess I didn't mean to jump the gun with the topic, but that's one of the main things right there, because, I mean, everything of this organization has been built around defense, the draft picks, the investments, the offseason signings. Like I said, the high picks in the draft, from Chase Young to Deron Payne to Jonathan Allen and so on, has all been defensive based. And if you're not getting a top 5 defense out of those picks and different assets, that's a problem. That's a huge problem.
Dre?
Yeah, I guess for me, I have to go with you can't lollygag at the quarterback position no more. I mean, we've known this for 30 years, now, but it's even more evident now. It's a passing league, and the league is controlled by the quarterback play. I mean, I saw a recent tweet today about how many quarterbacks were drafted, and just you look at the quarterbacks that are in the playoffs right now, and all of those guys are, they're upper. I mean, we haven't had an upper level guy at quarterback probably since RG3's rookie year. Maybe even you could say Kirk Cousins was probably top 15, but he's at the bottom. He's at the 14, 15, 16 level. He wasn't top 10 or anything, but we just haven't had that upper level quarterback in years. But when you look at the playoff teams, they always have those upper level guys, or the guys that are a factor come into the year. Super Bowl conference championships, you usually see the best guys playing in those leagues or in those games. And we don't have, we may have a middle of the pack NFL roster right now, but we don't have a roster that can carry a average or below average quarterback to the next level, or to where we want to be as a roster. So when you look at our team right now, we can win 7 games with a Taylor Heineke, but we need to elevate at that position, and we just can't play around with it anymore like we have been doing. I think Ron and his staff, I think they realize that now, and it sucks that it took this long to get to this point, but I think that's what we learned from this season.
Yeah, I think for me, this may be like common sense to many, but I think I probably underrated it a little bit. Is adding good individual players doesn't always translate to being a better overall team. I think, for some that's obvious, but for me, adding a guy like William Jackson, I thought that was going to be a really, really big move. I even thought Bobby McCain, adding someone like him, even though I knew, these guys weren't all pro players, I thought they fit very well in what they wanted to do as a defense. And I think I overrated I overrated just the fact of, man, even though if you have good players, they still need to kind of learn how to play as one unit. And I think we saw that with the defensive line, how they have some really good talent there. But earlier on, you mentioned, and you see the coaches mention how they're being, undisciplined. They're not playing as one unit. Same thing can be said for the back end. I think I overrated just how underrated rather, how important it is to really just create one good unit. And it's more than just having quote unquote good players.
Yeah, and Damien, I'll just say something real quick. Coaching matters. A lot of people undervalue coaching. Like, you look at the Buffalo Bills defense.
Yeah.
Like Leslie Frazier has those guys balling. There's no real all pros on that team. Everybody just does their job. Like, they're even missing their number one player on defense, Tre'Davious White, and they're still balling. It's like it's so underrated.
All right, you got it, Dan. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I couldn't hear.
No. Yeah. No, so and I totally get that. And I said on my podcast, I said that on my podcast too, that I think Washington might have to change their philosophy a little bit defensively, after this season. I really think you need to look at changing some things. Man, it's just going to be it's really tough because, man, you really thought there was two people that could really kind of figure this out and make, this unit play at a peak level. It would be these two guys. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested in this offseason, man. I mean, I really am. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do.
Yeah. So for me, if there's one thing that I learned, I think the biggest thing, and it's a great transition because AJ hit the nail on the head, is coaching matters. And for me, it's about Rivera. I mean, look, year one, like that was a blessing, right? You found your way into the playoffs. You won a division. You were happy. You faced adversity year two. Really, you faced adversity year one. You started off 2-7. But you faced adversity year two, and the defensive nature and protection of the players, which is what you're supposed to do, but also the protection of your coaching method and your coaching style doesn't necessarily help you out in a sense. So where I'm going with this is I felt like Rivera struggled with accountability, but thrived. I had to Google some words that kind of fit my mood, but exaltation. He thrives in exaltation. It's just simply like the praising and the cheers for when he does things successful or when he looks good. And my message and the takeaway that I got is always about staying medium. And Rivera struggles to stay medium, and it creates an imbalance when he speaks to us, when he speaks to the media, when he speaks through people, because he's relished in He's relished in his team's ability to overcome a 2-7 start in 2020, and obviously a 2-6 start in 2021. But he also asked us to be patient in 2021 and temper our expectations, which is something that you should never do. Why would you have to temper your expectations for a team that can be better? So when a person shows you who they really are early on, believe it, don't excuse it. When he can still be a winner in Washington, I don't know, like if the losses continue to pile up, I feel like the excuses will always be there, and eventually fans will grow tired of that. Some fans have already grown tired of that, and that's something that I learned. It's more so about Rivera as the years move on, as the weeks move on. It's an accountability factor that I feel like he lacks, and maybe that's just his style, that he'll never sit here and say that, or he'll rarely, because I'm not going to sit here and say never, right? But he'll rarely sit here and tell you that, things are on him. It may just be injuries. It may just be COVID. It may just be immaturity. It may just be all these other factors, but never the fault of the coach who has to prepare these guys and make sure that these guys are doing exactly what he says. And that's just my thing, man. I don't think he takes accountability well, and that could be alarming for the future. But if he wins, it doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't matter. All right, let's go ahead and close it out, man. 5 things that will fix the Washington football team. I was trying to figure out what the structure was for this one. I'm sorry. Let me catch up on the comments right quick. My bad. Disco mentioned that was a great point. I feel like he was talking about Damien and AJ's conversation about coaching, but he said that that's why I think we have the foundation of some solid depth guys in James Smith-Williams, Johnson. I'm sure he's talking about Danny, Deandre Carter. He just needs a couple of blue chips in the quarterback. Michael Haas mentioned chemistry, continuity, communication, and discipline is far more important on defense than talent. Alex mentioned that what he learned is that, they went to playoffs in 2020, 7-9. There's nothing to get excited about. And then lastly, Disco mentioned coaches come here and buy themselves time off of the bad reputation of the organization. Okay.
I think that part is overrated too. Like bad reputation of team. How many teams in the NFL are really that good? or top tier franchises that we can sit back and think of. Like, I mean, maybe Washington ain't. I mean, maybe like Jaguars, for example, ain't in the news as much as Washington, but that's a bad franchise. Like, you know, there's so many other teams that you can go down the list that are bad franchises. I just think here, maybe because we're in the nation's capital, people make it such a bigger deal, but it's not. The league doesn't have a bunch of like great owners. They don't have a bunch of great organizations.
We talked about the Dolphins last night, and how their management style is not good, like not good at all. Speaking from a guy who knew some people from the Dolphins, just it was terrible. Their oversight was terrible, and ultimately trickled down to football operations as well. So you got a point. All right, 5 things, man. 5 things that'll fix the Washington football team for 2022. The style of this, though, I figured we'd go just round table again. Start off with number 1. There is no order, but you have your 5 things. We just go from each of us, name one, until we get to our 5th item. So I guess I'll go ahead and start first because I'm sure if this is on everybody's list, we can move forward to the next one. But my first one is to re-sign Terry McLaurin and obviously J.D. McKissick. Those are 2 guys you have to keep on this team. If you feel like J.D. McKissick is replaceable, not you all, but if you all people out there feel like J.D. McKissick is replaceable, technically you're right, but technically you're wrong. This is a guy who does a lot of things well that you don't want to just sit here and hope that you can find somebody else. Like, keep him. So those are that's one of my first things is re-sign Terry and re-sign J.D.
Okay. I guess I'll go next. Middle linebacker. I mean, we need a middle of the field player at the linebacker position. And the thing is, like AJ mentioned earlier, it's hard to find a star player at this position. I mean, if you look throughout the NFL, it's not many star middle linebackers throughout the NFL. I mean, there's, you have decent players, you have good players, but when you even look back at, our last best middle linebacker was, of course, London Fletcher. London Fletcher was as solid as they come. We got him in free agency. Now, when you look at the free agent class this year, it's not many great middle linebackers out there. I mean, that's because you're just not going to find them. Like, if you have a great middle linebacker, teams are usually keeping those guys. They're not getting rid of them. They're not trading them. But all you really need at the middle linebacker position, you need a solid player. You don't need the great player. You need a solid player that can call the defense. He can diagnose coverages. So I mean, while it's a weak class, don't get me wrong, there's nobody out there that's going to jump out there. There's a couple of guys I will probably look at, and I think the team is going to look at, because it's hard to go out and draft a guy and just say this is going to be your middle linebacker for the next 10 years. You usually develop these guys, and they eventually become your guy. So free agency, you're looking at Foyesay Oluokun from the Falcons. He's a guy that you could plug and play at the middle linebacker position. He has good.
Drake did his research.
But that's the thing, AJ. Like, and you're not gonna. I mean, year in and year out, you're not gonna find a great middle linebacker. You just need a guy that's gonna be better than David Mayo. That's the guy they're playing right now over Jamin Davis at middle linebacker. So, you get a guy like Foyesay Oluokun. He's an athletic guy, but I'm not saying this is a guy you should go after, but this is a guy that's going to be on their list. Alexander Johnson from the Broncos. Vander Esch, he's an injury-prone guy. We've seen him for the Cowboys, but he's a guy that can play middle. And then your draft options. There's a couple of guys I would take on day 2 that I would draft and groom for the middle linebacker position. Channing Tindall, Georgia. I mean, he's a guy, he could play end to end over there. He's a guy who could probably get round 2. And Chad Muma from Wisconsin. He has the production you want. He has the size you want. Yes, and he can also be found in round 2, and that's a guy you can draft and develop. So these are just options that you need to look at for the middle linebacker position going forward.
Yeah, I think I'll go next. I agree 100% with all of that. Mual especially, I think that's the guy. I think that's it. Round 2, that's it. I think for Washington, I'm not. I mean, the obvious one's obviously quarterback, right? Figure that out. But I think they need to add someone that can really do some damage after the catch. I think this offense really needs some juice. They need some playmakers. They need someone that can make something happen, that can just make plays. Someone that can really help open some things up for Terry McLaurin as well. And I'm not talking about Deandre Brown. I mean, that's an option. But I was really thinking about the draft too. I like guys like I mentioned yesterday, like Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama. I really like. I don't know how to say his last name yet because I don't know. I'm just terrible with names. But I think his name is Romeo Dobbs. I know he's really good after the catch as well. But I think this team in general just needs guys that can really just make something happen with the ball in their hands. So I think that's one thing that would really improve this offense outside of obviously adding a quarterback.
Okay. So let me ask you all, if we do the receiver route, because I know we're looking at middle linebacker in terms of options. It's probably looking like the draft, but receiver, you have options with free agency and draft. Where y'all going with that one? Is this something that you're interested in
Draft.
terms of spending some money, or we're talking about draft?
I mean,
Draft,
I'm
draft.
interested in spending I'm interested in spending money and drafting a guy. Like I think I told you guys probably like shit. I would try to get Mike Williams or Calvin Ridley, and I would go take with my 11th overall pick, Garrett Wilson. At first it was Jameson Williams, but of course he tore his ACL Monday. But I need to get playmakers on this offense. I've invested everything in the defense. I need to go get some playmakers on the opposite side of the ball. I'm not even counting Curtis Samuel as a wide receiver on the scene. So I need to go give me a number 2, and I need to go give me a slot guy. Like I just need more weapons offensively, because the more weapons you have on that outside or in the slot, it's going to open up the run game for Antonio Gibson so much more.
Yeah, I understand that too. Or you want to go, Dre? Or you want me to go?
I was just going to say, I'll add to that for as far as wide receivers that, of course, Mike Williams, if you're going to free agency route, that'll be my top target in free agency. And then a couple of targets. I mean, see, the free agency wide receiver thing is decimated by injuries, because originally I thought of Mike Williams and I thought of Michael Gallup from the Cowboys. Those would be two of my top targets. But obviously Michael Gallup just got hurt with an ACL injury, and he's not going to be able to start the season. So then you have to kind of dig deeper into that pool. And it's a couple of names that fans are going to probably, turn their nose up at. But Will Fuller is a name I would look at too if I can't get a Mike Williams. Odell Beckham, I mean, he'll be a free agent this upcoming offseason. But then if you're going to draft, I would. This is dependent on if we get a quarterback through the trade route. Now, if we get a quarterback through the trade route, maybe you don't give up your first round pick. I'm looking at a Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State, or if you're trading down maybe a guy that slides, I'm looking at a Drake London out of USC or Chris Ola out of Ohio State. So I'm looking at guys like that when you're talking about wide receivers.
Yeah, no, I echo that 100%. I think I'm not really interested. I wouldn't be interested in paying any wideout any significant money if it's not Terry McLaurin right now. I think that's priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 when it comes to spending money on a wide receiver. And I really like the receiver class. I mean, it seems like every year the receiver class gets better and better. I mean, even guys like Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky, I like him a lot, especially after the catch. I know it sounds like I'm really just going hard for guys after the catch right now, but I think that's really what Washington needs. So I think it's receiver, it's draft receivers all the way for me. And I agree, if you're getting a quarterback, and you have to give up your first, I would be interested in trading back and drafting like Chris Olave or something like that. Jahan Dotson, I really like as well. So yeah, I think it's draft wideouts all day, every day, man. I think the only receiver they need to be worried about paying is Terry McLaurin, 17.
Yeah, I mean, I need 3 wide receivers, man. Like that's the new thing. That's going to be the new trend in the league. Teams are going to have 3 wide receivers. Like, I don't think this team can really rely on a day 2 or day 3 draft pick to come in and contribute at wide receiver. I think you have to go get you a playmaker at 11 in the first round if you can, and also try to get a playmaker in free agency. That's what they thought they were doing with Curtis Samuel. I mean, I knew that was going to be a bust, but at the end of the day, you got to make a play. You got to get some help for Terry and open up this passing game so much more. Not even just yards after the catch, but just like creating separation with your route tree.
Yeah,
so we have. You got it. You go ahead, Damien.
I was going to add one more thing. And I get where you're coming from, bro. I think it's too early to rule out the Curtis Samuel thing. I think it's a little too early for that. I think with Deandre Brown too. Deandre Brown was someone. Yeah, we all figured too. He needed a lot of work in his overall route tree I think the one thing you're worried about, and I think everyone is just he really struggled to create separation. So I can get the concern there as well. But I wouldn't rule out, like possibly drafting day 2 guys because of that. I think actually day 2 has a lot of really good talent, man. Like they've hit before, you know what I mean, on day 2. So I wouldn't rule it out, man. I really think that's the way to go. But everyone has different opinions.
But look, to follow up on Damien's opinion about Damien Brown. Damien Brown needs a quarterback with a cannon arm. If he doesn't have a quarterback with a cannon arm, he probably is no good on the football field. So, I mean, in that case, if we're talking about drafted quarterbacks, even though I think the preferable position to go with the quarterback position is probably a trade for a guy, especially if Ron Rivera wants to win next year. But I'm looking at the guys with the strongest arms, and one of those guys that you all probably are going to disagree with me with here. But this guy you'll probably get in the second round in the NFL draft at quarterback, Carson Strong. I think he has the biggest elite trait of the NFL draft of quarterbacks, and that is his cannon of an arm. And somebody like Damien Brown probably could thrive with a Carson Strong.
Yeah,
so,
I just wrote about him too.
So
I'll keep interrupting you. My bad.
You're good. Let's talk about the quarterback spot. Because we all know quarterback is on the list. Obviously, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just to clear up on things, I'm sure we're all in agreement because I wrote these things down already. I'm sure we're all in agreement with Terry. Optional with JD, but Terry is definitely on our list. Wide receiver is on our list. Middle linebacker is on our list. So that's 3 things right there. Quarterback is on our list as well. So let's kind of shake it up for this conversation in itself. I came up with a draft day trade package, man. And I think the thing is with this one, a lot of people throughout and I'll be quick with my point. A lot of people with this situation itself, the quarterback position, and even other positions as well, i.e. Jamin Davis last year, a lot of people really don't foresee it happening until it happens. And that is players shoot up on the draft board all the time. There are going to be somebody, a quarterback or two at the most important position that we need, where you sit here and say, after it's all said and done in April, that what they did in January and what they did during the combine in March, shot them up and on their pro day, shot them up on the draft. Hold on 1 second. Let me go ahead and fix this right quick. Shot them up on people's draft board. So all of a sudden, you have to figure out how high you have to go in order to get that quarterback. So for me, you have to have a trade package ready to go in order to move up in case you have to move up. And for me, that involves a package including a 2021 first, a 2021 fourth, and then a 2020 second, first or second, and Matt Ioannidis, depending on how far you have to move up. You just have to be ready to spend that. And that's where I'm at. That's one of my to-do items is finding out who's expendable on your roster and then finding out the draft picks that you're going to get ready. Those are what I'm willing to part in order to move up for a quarterback.
Ooh.
Yeah, you got to spend. Spend stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind spending and trading picks. I'm like Les Snead. Fuck them picks. You feel me? but at the end of the day, if I'm gonna say fuck them picks, I need to know exactly what I'm getting. So that's where, when it comes to a trade package, there's no quarterback worth that shit in this draft at all.
Well, see that, and that's why I was like, it's going to be somebody that shoot up, bro. I'm telling you, it's going to be somebody. That
yeah, but that's just the propaganda of the NFL draft and just people not really paying attention to tape. I mean, see what happens with the Jamin Davis situation. He was projected a 3rd, 4th round pick, and they let the draft process push him up to a 1st round pick, and then he got on the field, and then what? Nothing. So
Good
it's
point.
like,
yeah.
at the end of the day, you got to know your tape, and you got to know what you're looking at, and there's no quarterback in this draft worth trading up multiple picks for the future, whatever. And even Ron can't afford to do that, because if he don't hit this year, he's out. So he really will be taking a quarter for somebody else next year, because there's no way there's any quarterback in this draft that's going to be able to take this offense to another level, unless you really sit there and you feel like you have a setup where someone can sit back and develop. Maybe you go and take a Malik Willis. He has the highest upside in my opinion, but that package that you just described is what you need to do to go get a veteran presence at QB and Deshaun Watson and Russell
I agree.
Wilson. Nothing.
I think
no,
that's just less than 15% chance, though.
And I really think just like listening to the presser, reading the transcript you provided, and different talks, and even just knowing that they went so heavy after Matt Stafford last year, but didn't pull it off, they know they need a veteran quarterback. It can't be, a lot of these fans are talking about Jimmy G. Ain't none of that shit. If you do that, you might as well just go ahead and say 1, 2, 3 Cancun. And it's going to be hell on Ron Rivera if he get Jimmy G, a Trubisky in here, or somebody of that caliber in here. He has to go get an elite quarterback. I don't know if he got to sit outside of Russell Wilson crib in Seattle, LA, New York, Deshaun Watson crib, wherever he at. Like, he has to be on it and pull off something miraculous and get him a elite quarterback that's already been proven in this league. Because, I mean, just my eyes as far as the quarterback position in the draft this year, there's nobody worth me packaging any type of picks or even giving you a second round and a potential first next year to move up. I'm not doing none of that shit for none of these guys. Like, I think at 11,
agree 100%.
I think at 11, man, you just sit back, relax, and maybe you get another corner, maybe you get, offensive lineman, maybe you get a wide receiver, but they have to go get a star caliber quarterback, and especially with a new name, you cannot come in here and bring me no fucking rookie quarterback or no fucking Jimmy G or Mitchell Trubisky. You can't do that.
No, I agree 100% with AJ. Like, and the thing is, I would not trade up at all in this draft for a quarterback at all. I don't care who the prospect is. I'm not trading it up at all because I think you could probably, let's say you got 4 prospects in this draft that maybe, NFL GMs like. I don't think you'll be upset if you draft the 4th guy versus not getting the first guy in this draft. I don't think there's a significant drop off from the first quarterback, the QB1 to QB4 in this draft. I don't see a significant drop off. So I'm not trading up for any guy. And as far as as Ron Rivera goes, I think it's in Ron Rivera's best interest to go out there and get a proven guy at the position if you can. If there's one of those guys available, if a Russell Wilson or something is out there available, that's the guy you go the hardest at. Now, I don't think the Deshaun Watson is the option. I don't think he's going to be a viable option only because AJ mentioned something last podcast that was something interesting to me, that he had the same agent as Dwayne Haskins. And that agent, I specifically remember that agent actually blasted Washington football franchise on Twitter. Like, he went on Twitter, he said some things about the Washington football franchise in regards to Dwayne Haskins and them not doing him right and what's up. So he may be in, Deshaun Watson's ear, and that may be a reason why Deshaun Watson doesn't have us on one of his little lists that he wants to come here. But if Russell Wilson or one of those other top guys, and it's going to be very few. But if one of those top guys like Russell Wilson becomes available, you have to throw everything at him, just like you did for Matt Stafford last year. You have to go hard at those guys this year. Like, you can't just sit there and be passive going forward. You have to get a guy. Ron Rivera, and he knows. Like, I watched the interview that he had with J.P. Finley recently. When J.P. Finley asked him, he said, "Hey, Ron," he was like, "Do you all?" He made a joke. He was like, "I heard you all need a quarterback." Ron laughed for about 30 seconds, and he finally says, "That's an understatement." So he knows. And he may say all of this bull crap about there being 4 ways to acquire a quarterback, including, what's on the roster, but that's not an option. I don't think what's on the roster right now, I think Ron knows. It's only 2 options. Trade or draft. Exactly, Jamal. There's not 4 options. And he's just saying that just to be nice to the guys he already has. He doesn't want to put those guys down publicly. And that's a good coach move. But he knows there's 2 options. There's trade or there's draft. And then whatever top guy becomes, disgruntled with his current situation, that's what's going on right now, you have to put your bid in for that guy. Even Deshaun Watson, even though I think that's unlikely, but you still have to put your bid in for that.
And Ron Rivera also said if they did go and get a quarterback first round, they got to be ready to play right now. Like, he's not going to let them sit back and chill. So if you look at the quarterback prospects, there's very few guys that could get on the field right now and play. It's only going to be those guys that are dual threats in some regard, which is the Matt Corrals, the Malik Willis, because at least if you put them out there and they're not seeing the field well, at least they can run around and try to create something on the fly. But if you get the Sam Howells or even the Kenny Pickett's, I mean, he has some mobility, but it's not anything crazy. But at the end of the day, like you can't just go get one of these guys, and if he does do that and they don't start, we're gonna go right back to that tape. Like it's not gonna make sense. So they know. I mean, hopefully they cook it up a little bit more. They also seen what Matt Stafford did with the Rams. That's a little bit more of a damn. Maybe we should have pulled the gun a little bit better or sooner. But we also see where the Rams are. They're back in the playoff mix, and they also have a better passing threat with Stafford at quarterback versus Goff, even though they mortgaged.
Well, what y'all think about Carson Wentz? Would you like Carson Wentz?
Let's get Damien in here.
Carson Wentz in DC.
Yeah. Let me. I don't want to interrupt y'all. We have my show's a lot. I listen to all that. I think I disagree with.
Hey, your connection going in and out.
Damien got that Teddy Riley Wi-Fi.
He out there in the middle of nowhere.
I'm about to say the connection going
in
and out.
Can you hear me? I got full.
He nap a little bit.
He said, I got full bars, bro. What y'all talking about?
You going in and out. It's probably because you're moving.
I hear me or no?
If you stand still, I think we can hear you.
Yeah.
You can hear me right now?
Stand still, but when you get to moving.
Shit. I was telling y'all my shit's about to die. What's it called? No, I think Kenny Pickett can actually start right away. I think Carson Strong, Dre's guy, could actually play relatively quickly as well. I think so. I think both Pickett. I think if Washington's going to draft one quarterback, one rookie, going to be.
Oh man.
Hey, everybody, he said go get Deshaun Watson
because he can play immediately. He's older. He has a ton of experience. And whatever the case is, I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to go big. They're going to be like me out here in the ocean. They're going to go big.
Hey, so what we're going to do, everybody that's listening, we're going to fill in the blanks. We could put any name like AJ did, any name where Damien
big
dropped
fishing
off.
Out here.
Where Damien dropped off. Hey, Damien, I know you said your phone about to die.
I'm going to holler at y'all.
Yes, sir. Have your business, bro. Be safe on your trip.
Be safe.
All right. So let's go ahead and close out. We talked about the quarterback. I think y'all made good points. I think, like I said, it's all important, like having that trade package ready. I don't necessarily think you have to use it, but you have to find something because you have to get ready in order to get your draft picks, find your assets that you think are expendable. And if it's not the draft, okay, but have it ready because you probably gonna need an even stronger trade package for a veteran. Matt I don't think he's gonna cut it.
But I'm mad Dre mentioned Carson Wentz. Like what made that come in your head?
I just asked. No, I asked you. Would you be okay if he was look, AJ, how many elite quarterbacks are on the market right now?
Hey, I don't care, man. I'd rather put a paraplegic at quarterback before I put fucking Carson Wentz.
No, you won't, because you don't like Heineke.
Yes,
you're not gonna put a paraplegic.
Bro, I don't like any of these dudes, but Carson Wentz, man, I've had to watch Carson Wentz this whole year because one of my clients plays for the Colts. Oh my God, it is a nightmare. Like, and then seeing it in person is even worse. Like, you're just wondering, like, what the hell is going through his head? Like, and it's baffling to me because if you can't get it right with your former OC, who's the head coach, then you're not gonna get it right nowhere else. Like, it's impossible to get that shit right with him.
But I think we as fans have to get used to the idea that we may not get that Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson coming in next year. And if you don't get those two, what are the other options going forward next year? And that's something we have to kind of start talking about.
I would say maybe start rooting for a different team because, like, if you don't get a star quarterback, bro, just like a new team. They about to change the name and everything. Ain't gonna hurt you too bad. So I mean, This team cannot afford to go get a rookie quarterback, in my opinion, because you lose the roster. I've been saying this like since we've been doing this podcast, but you have a lot of guys coming up on new deals. Terry is one of them, right? And that's because he happened to not be a day one draft pick. So he's coming up on a deal. You got Montez Sweat coming up on a deal. Antonio Gibson is coming up on a deal soon because he wasn't a day one pick. Like, you got a lot of guys coming up on deals that you're going to have to pay. And, of course, the salary cap is increasing. But long term, even Deron Payne is coming up on a fifth-year option.
Yeah, he coming up.
You have to start trying to win the Super Bowl right now, because if you don't, you're going to be just like the Seattle Seahawks, who Russell Wilson is trying to get away from, because they no longer have – they don't have the assets to go get players anymore. They have no money to spend to acquire guys in the free agency. He's pretty much just stuck with whatever his roster is, and that's not adequate enough in this league. Like, if you're gonna miss on draft picks, you're even more screwed. So, like, when you miss on a Jamin Davis, it's not just a year one. That affects you for 4 or 5 years. Like, no matter if they play quarterback or they play running back, safety, whatever it is, you're hurting your team when you miss on these picks. So yeah, you can't afford to go get a quarterback. No,
so
sir.
here's the thing. I mean, the thing is, free agency comes before the draft, so you'll have an answer before we even reach April. But I think the thing is, when it comes to that position in itself, if you're not trying at all, then you're losing. You're missing out. You got to make money. You got to spend money to make money. And for me, it's always this notion. Shout out to Bear from ESPN. He says, in gambling terms, the less you bet, the more you lose when you win. If you're not betting, if you're not gambling and trying to hit that guy or hit that pick for and get that superstar quarterback, or trying for that superstar quarterback, or trying for competence, and hoping that they blossom into something more, then I mean it's just losing. You're losing, and that's kind of where I'm at with the position in itself. In terms of this team specifically, you can absolutely win the quarterback situation if you go the draft route. But I mean, what is the easier option? The easier option is going for the veteran, and I don't blame you. But at the same time, you also have to acquire them, and I don't think people are really going to be in that. Like I said, I say less than 15% chance. 15% chance, and that's just why it makes it hard, bro. You're looking at the draft. I think you're looking at the draft.
I mean, I think if you make the necessary moves and improve this team from a playmaker standpoint, it becomes a more attractive place to want to play quarterback. If you go and get guys like a Calvin Ridley, possibly, I'm not saying that's what you should do, but if you go get a Calvin Ridley or a Mike Williams to go along with a Terry McLaurin, now quarterback is looking in here like, damn, I got 2 solid number ones. Like, I got weapons to play with. And they got Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick. Russell Wilson has played with J.D. McKissick already in the past, so he knows what he can do.
Sign that man.
Yeah, that man ain't going nowhere. He gonna sign here. But I mean, you become a more attractive team if you can acquire weapons. I would say I wouldn't be surprised if this team has a quarterback and a framework trade in place by the time they announce the team name on 2/2/22. That's just how Washington likes to move. Like, that's how Daniel Snyder moves.
I agree.
And that's a week before Super Bowl. I see them having a framework in place for a quarterback by that time.
All right.
I agree with AJ.
Well, we will see. So catch up on some comments, and then the last thing, we'll be quick with that one. Where are we at? Merle said he wouldn't mind OBJ. Felt that De'Ami Brown can play if they give him the ball. Mike Haas mentioned Drake London is a great talent, but tends to turn turns his shoulder, sink his hips on every route. Merle mentioned that his guy's Carson Strong. You have a lot of fans on Carson Strong, Dre, Disco, Merle, and then we have where's the other one? It was somebody else. Oh, yeah, Mike said that he felt that. Where's he at? He had mentioned something about Mike Williams. Thought I saw it. He basically said, I don't know where the comment is at anymore, but he said Mike Williams isn't a guy to go after. Oh yeah, Mike Williams had 10 drops and struggles to separate. Don't overpay for a receiver who's not a creator. So that's what he mentioned.
I don't think Mike Williams sends the. I mean, not the drops, but I don't think he struggles to separate. He's a big body target, man. Like you.
Yeah, I agree.
We all watched that game Sunday night. That boy was out there making them plays and doing what he needed to do. But you know, Washington don't have nobody like that, so it's kind of hard to shit on a wide receiver like that when you got motherfuckers throwing to the damn Adam Humphries and
that man led the league one year in yards per catch.
Like, he still has the vertical route tree. Mike Williams has a vertical route tree. Like, yeah.
All right. So the last thing, and we'll be quick with this one. I'll let AJ take the lead. Shake up the coaching staff. So we identify all our 4 in different ways. Re-sign Terry McLaurin, quarterback, obviously number 1, however we want to do it, veteran or draft. We have wide receiver. We have middle linebacker. Those are 4. The last thing that I had on my list, I know AJ had it on his, was shake up the coaching staff. I identified Sam Mills, the defensive line coach, Steve Russ, the linebackers coach, Drew Terrell, the wide receiver coach for me. I'm not saying all 3 should go, but I'm also saying that if Ron is going to take a look at anybody, it needs to start at the assistant positions. And I don't know how much of an effort, and this is very irresponsible of me, but it is what it is. I don't know how much of an impact they have made, but I know that the defensive line has struggled to really play together and mesh. Does Sam Mills really have control over that defensive line group? I don't know. Steve Russ, obviously the linebackers coach, they were struggling. Cole Holcomb played. I mean, he was around, like I told you all. Like, just because you make a lot of tackles, does that mean you're good? I don't necessarily know. You're a linebacker. You know how to tackle. And then Jamin Davis, obviously, we know how he worked out in his rookie year. And then Drew Terrell, look, you had 1,000-yard receiver, and then the next leading receiver was a running back who had 200 yards. So we had nobody at the receiver position outside of Cam Sims who didn't get opportunities.
But see, when you go after the assistants, then you got to look at the coordinator, because they're just doing whatever the coordinator is dialing up. So they're teaching them the principles based on what the coordinator wants. So yeah, I mean, like my first 2 things on my list was fire Jack Del Rio and fire Scott Turner. You know, because at the end of the day, it's crazy. Jack Del Rio in his exit interview with the media was like, I'm not going nowhere. Like, confidently knew that. Like, that's bullshit, bro. Like, how can you be that confident? I mean, yeah, that's your boy, but that means Ron ain't doing what's right for the team. He's just doing what's right for his great relationships with individuals. Because at the end of the day, this is your last year, make or break. And like I said, you will never coach in the NFL again if you do not win out this year. You do not do something incredible, you will never get another head coaching job. So it's like, you got to understand that and realize, like, yo, I need to bring in some new coordinators, some new blood in this building, because at the end of the day, if I don't shake things up, it's going to be the same old. Yeah, you could bring a quarterback in here, but if the schemes is not, like I said earlier with Damien on here, coaching matters, man. And if we're going to go hard after the assistants, we got to go hard at the coordinators that also are telling these guys what to do from a schematically standpoint and how to coach these guys up as well, because they're just coaching them based on what they want.
And for me, I'm just going to say the last thing I have is you got to figure out what to do with Landon Collins. I think it's you have to either find a trade partner for him at his contract, or you just have to, cut ties with him. And I think 2022 was the year you would be able to cut ties with him because of his cap number. His dead cap number would only be $9.6 million if you cut out of his deal this year, and it could free up something elsewhere. Because right now you're using Landon Collins as you're trying to find something for Landon Collins to do on the field. Now he did start playing well once they stopped putting him at deep safety, but I don't think it's warranted. I don't think his contract matches how they're using him right now. And I think you can find that production elsewhere, and that could free up, money to go elsewhere in free agency.
I think I would keep Collins.
Now,
because the market dictates that. Like, what he's getting paid, like box safety, he's supposed to be a box safety. So, I mean, that's how Jamal Adams got paid. Justice
I think
Simmons
approach
kind
it
of
with a
does both.
restructure though. If anything, approach him with a restructure. See how he
Once
responds.
again, David Mulugeta is Landon Collins' agent as well, who also represents Deshaun Watson. So yeah, I mean, you figure it out, man. But I think Landon is one of the leaders on the team, regardless of how some people feel like he played in the beginning stages of his career here in Washington. But that was to coaching failure. If you get that man back around the ball, that's an impact player. That's your linebacker in a sense. Like, he's making up for the Cole Holcombs and the Jamin Davis due to the fact that you don't have a middle linebacker. So if you get rid of him, who do you plug in there? A lot of people screaming, "Yeah, bring in Jeremy Reeves," and what, his ass been playing and getting cooked. His ass been playing and getting cooked out
Everett. No disrespect to the backups. I mean, they are solid depth pieces, but it's like, just because they the backups don't mean that they should be the starter. It means they're the backup for a reason. I'm with you. All right, so one thing Jared mentioned, his 5: find a quarterback, trade or draft, no free agency, lock down Terry to a contract, sell the new name identity. Franchise is very close to losing its fan base. Give us something to rally around. Don't break the bank on Brandon Sheriff. He's a good guard, but that money could go to so many other places. 5: more impact players. Resign guys like McCain. Good one on McCain. McKissick, and sign a big free agent to add to the win column. He says a wide receiver opposite of Terry. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out with reading some more of the top 5 things that people would do. But Dre and AJ, I'm not going to hold y'all too long. Schedule-wise, everybody that's still sticking with us, so we can go through some of those comments. Schedule-wise, we got the butter out the duck today. And if you don't know what that means, good, because I don't either. My mom says it a lot. She from Mississippi. My folk from Mississippi. But it means we did a lot today. Because we won't be here next week. So we did enough to hold us over for this weekend next. The fellas on the Washington side of the Trapper Dive, we will be back in 2 weeks. And all 32 will be back next week. We'll be chopping it up. But the Washington side of things, we'll check back in 2 weeks. That'll be a week before the new name is released. And then obviously on a weekly basis from there. So AJ, Dre, I know y'all got things to do, man. Y'all be safe. Enjoy y'all weekend. I'm gonna wrap up with some of the comments from the question that we had earlier for the show.
Peace.
Yes, sir. Y'all boys be safe. All right. One thing right here. Where is that? Did I get that right? Boom. All right. So let's close up on some of the comments. Let me share my screen with you all. Appreciate y'all rocking with us through the. There we go. Share the screen. Share screen. Boom, boom, boom. All right. First off, I don't know why this is the first one that pops up. Hold on. Where is it at? Let me go ahead and change it. All right. So we have Strick, and shout out to you, but you kind of wild for this one. It was the reason why I couldn't retweet it. We're not going to list the first 2, but we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about. All right. Look, the third one is wrong too. All right. So number 4. Find a quarterback that we can actually build around for once, please. I'm old. I don't know how much time I have left. I respect that. Number 5, resign Terry. My boy Sean. Extend Terry. Trade for Tua. Tua shouldn't cost you much. Draft a quarterback. Doesn't matter which round. Hire a new training staff. That's really good. And it's something that people talk about a lot, by the way. But hire a new training staff. And fix the railings at FedEx because I got nothing else. My man Native Son mentioned obviously quarterback Mitch Trubisky and draft the number 1 priority. Other names aren't coming here. Let's go ahead and go through some more. My boy Cole, quarterback capable of winning 10+ games, a legit playmaking receiver, a tight end to pair with Terry. Number 3, offensive line depth. Number 4, starting caliber linebacker, a middle linebacker. And then another dual threat running back. If McKissick cannot be resigned at a reasonable number. The Hog side, my boy Alex, a stadium in the city, new offensive coordinator. First off, we're not going to get a stadium locked up this summer, so I understand the optimism. We all love to be back in the city, but new offensive coordinator, a quarterback that actually works in said offensive coordinator system, a team-wide philosophy of building through the draft, keeping drafted players here who have talent, extending Terry. Curl has like 3 more years, so I don't think we're really worried about Cameron Curl, but I get it. And then bring in a new minority ownership with the football background. My boy Marshall, quarterback, re-signed Terry, re-signed 41. Mike linebacker, draft playmakers offensively and defensively. He feels like re-signing Terry obviously sends a message with the rebrand that this is the type of player who walks the walk and produces consistently. All right, so we have Disco secured a quarterback that the entire organization can support. Re-sign McLaurin and McKissick. Decide where Jamin Davis will excel and play for him. And then add 2 to 3 blue chip players, elite players to the roster. Yeah, sure, that'll fix them. That'll fix them. Let's see. Okay, so Ant quarterback, another consistent receiver to pair with Terry, middle linebacker, left tackle, cornerback, and strong safety. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there because I don't know where my timeline is gonna go. I'm gonna leave it at that. My timeline gets kind of wild at certain times of the day. I think y'all know where I'm going with that one. So we're going to go ahead and leave it there. All right, so let's catch up on some of the last comments. Merle, salute, big dog. I appreciate you. Yes, I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Checking me out. You said you've been rocking me since Hogs Haven. That is good, man. I'm glad my work is, I'm glad it's getting out there. And then Marcus Eldon mentioned sign a bridge quarterback, draft Malik Willis, sign a middle linebacker from Cleveland, sign the middle linebacker from Cleveland, and sign Marcus Williams. Now, I will say one thing before I leave, before we get up out of here, right? I don't think they're doing the bridge thing. I don't point listening to what Ron Rivera has said, and then even AJ brought it up again today. I don't think they're going the bridge route. I think whoever they sign or whoever they trade for or whoever they draft is going to be their starter in 2022. I don't think they have that luxury to bring in the new brand, the new name, and then also say we're going to bridge a guy over here. Like they want that face of the franchise for that new brand, that new name, and whoever they pick, they have to be what's the word Martin Mayhew calls selectively aggressive. So they have to kind of figure out what they want, and they have to get who that want is. They have to get that want. Whoever they identify it to be is going to be their starter. So no bridge options, I believe. I don't think they're going to do that. Taylor Heineke, if anything, is going to be the bridge. They're going to try and find their starter after Heineke and go from there. All right. That's it. Again, appreciate y'all. I will be back next week for the All 32 side of Trapper Dive. The fellas will be back in 2 weeks, 1 week before the new name release. And we'll be here weekly as we get ready for free agency and as we get ready for the draft as well. So with that being said, y'all be safe. Enjoy y'all evening. And I will catch y'all later. Peace.